Hey everyone, this is Ryan with 3DStoryteller, and today we're going to be taking a look at making a choose your own adventure using multiple choice events and 3DStoryteller's branching timelines. Specifically, we'll be looking at the ability to branch pages and create many paths and outcomes to your story. We'll be looking at the multiple choice event up close and building a scenario around it and showing how that can scale. We'll also be looking at a new framework that we use to create these types of experiences and lets us take otherwise lecture-like content that people would have to sit and listen or watch and translate that into more of a challenge for them to self-engage with and overcome. Far more effective way of learning that we call the hero's journey map. Lets us really map that to a learning growth outcome. And last, we'll be taking a look at an interaction template that we use constantly. And once you really kind of see the shape of it and how it works and flows, it becomes almost second nature to build, again, as expansive of a story as you want. Let's dive in. Today, I'm reusing a scenario I used in an interaction demo around higher education, in which a student is coming to their professor, questions about a low grade they just got. And then, from the professor standpoint, what's the right way to handle this situation, et cetera. Really, though, this is a soft skills simulation. You could really put any type of story into this, HR, leadership, conflict management, anything you can imagine, customer service. What I've already done here is I've created a scene using a 3-character setup, meaning a host character, which is played by myself here, as well as our student character and a professor. And then you can kind of just see the simple setup from the camera where that's looking. Over. Storyteller. Here in 3DStoryteller, then, we can see that our scene is already set up, and I've gone ahead and just created the first couple pages of introduction that we can take a look at. But you can see that 3-character setup here. Our host character can kind of speak to the camera, but then we can also engage with characters and move all around. So let's go ahead and hit play and see what this looks like in action. Remember, you can always hit your first page here to get back to the beginning, or just click this box with a 1 and it'll recenter. With page 1 highlighted, we'll go ahead and hit play.
Ryan here. Let's take a look at creating an interactive, choose your own adventure story using 3DStoryteller. It looks like a student has concerns over a recent grade they received. Let's see if we can help.
I'm sorry to bother you, Professor. I just don't understand why my grade was so low. I worked really hard on this project, and it's a huge part of the grade. I don't know what I'll do if I fail this class.
Wow, this student seems really upset.
Awesome. Okay, so there we saw the setup for our story. And with that, we can look back at our FigJam board. Again, I like to use tools like FigJam or really any other flow diagram tool that you might be using, or even just paper and pencil and just mapping this out. I find it really easy, or find it a lot easier to flow out the story, type out the dialogue, and really kind of see the shape of what I'm making before sitting down in Storyteller and trying to making it up on the fly. But whatever works for you. I also find this is really useful to share with other people. They can kind of get a look into the process. In this case, too, I've color-coded our story. And what we have here is really a multiple choice narrative with 3 different branched outcomes. And then in this case, they all tie back at the end and then continue going. But we'll look at some other options for what you can do with this. Again, I've already kind of kicked off our story. We've got our home screen, and then what we see here is, again, a template for really how this can be reused many times. We have our host giving a quick introduction, maybe even an insight into what you're going to be tasked with doing. I love to throw you right into the scenario. Here we have the character just picks up, and we're thrown into the story. Our host then kind of pulls back and gives a quick summary just to recap and make sure we're focused again on what we're asking kind of a hero in the story to do. We have our multiple choice, or how we'd refer to that, our challenge. Then you see we get to see what happens. So you select an answer or a response, and then we see our professor character actually play out that response. And then the student responds to that. So you can kind of get to see the outcomes. In some of these cases, I've labeled these red. These are our less desired outcomes. Of course, these answers are probably pretty normal in this case, but we have one preferred one, which I've starred here. And then based on that, then our host comes back in with what I refer to as a coaching follow-up. Again, rather than tell you the answer or totally over immerse you in information up front, instead I'll give you just a quick guiding hint here that we're using specifically emotional intelligence. Based on that, which one of these answers meets that criteria? And then my coaching follow-up is really coming in and saying either that wasn't the best response, and here's maybe why or how you could even do it better, or if you get that right, we say that's right, well done, and just keep it going. So either way, you either get reinforcement or you get correction. And again, we can look at some options after this scenario for what we could do with people at that point, even like replaying the scenario if we want. Oh, right. One other layer that I really like to bring into this level of storytelling too is something that we call the hero's journey map. And this really just builds on top of the idea of a user journey or growth, and how we position challenge as an opportunity for growth and the ability to reach a desired outcome, even a reward. So this is kind of a blend together of how we might think of an ideal user path or a player mechanic reward loop, but really, again, fused into this idea of more a hero's journey. You've probably heard of hero's journey. Joseph Campbell really set out the framework for this kind of thinking of an origin. Your character's coming from somewhere. In this case, they are at the beginning of learning about how to deal with these types of scenarios. We break down an insight here. In this case, very simple, just kind of mentioning emotional intelligence, but oftentimes it's just a clue like that we want to feed. Again, we don't really need to lecture too much. And then the challenge, which also is our multiple choice and the outcomes, and reward follow, and then followed by a recap, and then spinning back into probably another cycle like this. You really could build these out into a full choose your own adventure story, endless branching paths. You could have many endings. You can have one ending, and we'll look at how you get there. Back. Okay, jumping back into 3D Storyteller then, and I'll be drawing on that float out outline in FigJam as I build the story. Again, just so you can see into our process. So we played through this. We got this already kind of set up. We've got a little bit of camera going and everything like that, just to make it feel good. But now we're at the point where it's time for our insight and challenge. Here, We've got my character who I love to use for demos here. We're going to go ahead and create a new page. They say, wow, the student seems really upset. They're looking at the character. And then on this next page, we'll zoom out. And this time we're going to kind of refocus now on our professor. So kind of have the focus a little bit more on them. Click on my character. I'll have them switch their focus, drop in that dialogue, and render that. You won't be able to hear this. Oh. Cool. And maybe here too, I'll change the pose of this character. Maybe something thoughtful there. Cool. There we go. All right. So you have my character as the host here, asking a question. Got this kind of thoughtful cinematic moment, and we've got our camera set to match dialogue, so it'll kind of pan out. But now we need to add our page event. Again, page event is something that only exists on one page, so you won't see it in your chapter hierarchy, which shows everything in this chapter, whether they're invisible or not, doesn't matter. But a page event will show something that's temporary just to that page. So add a game library multiple choice event here. And it's not going to show up yet until we add a few things. So let's add, actually, let's first go in and we'll select my character and let's copy that question, but I'm going to turn the show bubble off. Our multiple choice is now visible. And for the title, I'm going to just repeat what my character's saying, but this will paste it in as the title of the question. Select an answer below to continue. So we can just tailor how we want people to engage here. And then we can go ahead and start creating our answers. So our answers are, first, I get it that the grade reflects the rubric. Go and paste that in. And I'll ignore page for now. We'll come back to that. I'll add an answer. Come down over, copy, and paste that in. Hard work doesn't always mean a good grade. Or third, add another answer, paste it in. I can tell you tried. Let's walk through it together. It certainly seems more emotionally intelligent. All right. So at this point, we've got a multiple choice box up here with 3 choices, and we can see it already works. We could hit play the story. You can select these boxes, but they don't go anywhere. In fact, there's no pages after this. Looking back at FigJam, this is where we really start branching. So let's go ahead and start adding some branch logic to this. And again, it's very simple. We're just going to select page 10 here, make sure it's selected. And then up here in our timeline toolbar, where we have some controls, there's branch timeline. You can click it. If there's only one page being created here, it'll look the same as though you just hit that plus sign at the end. But I'll go ahead and drag it up here. I'll click on 10 again. I'll hit branch, create a second branch. I'll do it one more time. So now we have 3 branches going to each of 3 pages. And we've got a multiple choice event that is functional. One last step, though, to really make this a functional choose your own adventure. We need to hook it up page 10 here. And again, these are auto numbered, just generative. So if you move your pages around, they'll just automatically reorder. But we want to link this page to what is currently page 11, as well as page 12 and 13. So we know, based on your choice, where we want to send you. And we could actually send you anywhere. That's something we can look at here in a little bit. So in my multiple choice event, I'm going to select page 11. And you'll see both its number and its actual page name. So every page you create has a random string of characters assigned to it. So you can change the name, you can link them wherever, but there's always a true page name that we can always refer to. You can change this, it doesn't really matter. Just for simplicity's sake, it does tell you 11 though. Down here, we want this to go to page 12. Oops, there we go. And here, of course, nope, 13, there we go. We can look at later the idea of an answer ID, but we can actually say that we want the right answer to be the third choice, answer 3. If we wanted to keep track of a correct choice, which is really cool if you get to the end and you want to do an overall recap and see more or less, how people scored throughout, or tell them their score, or just record it on the back end. But we don't always need to use that. In fact, I use these types of choose your own adventures frequently just for more conversational points where the characters can have a unique interaction. It doesn't even have to be a scored type of moment of engagement. You can really be fun with this. Okay, so we've got 3 pages and 3 outcomes, and now we want our character to actually respond here. So up here on page 11, maybe I'll zoom in a little bit, and I'll have our character say, I get it, the grade reflects the rubric. Maybe I'll give him a gesture. There we go. Cool, I'll do the same for page 12. Drop hard work doesn't always mean a good grade. I'll maybe just reuse that same gesture. And last, our preferred path. That dialogue, I can try you tried. I can tell you tried. Let's walk through it together. And you know what? That kind of works for all of them. So don't have to rethink the wheel. And then last, let's just add in our character's response here. We'll pull back. Let's change that back. So here we have our student say, okay, I guess I just hoped effort counted more, kind of defeated. Yeah, there we go. Not super happy about it. And 13, pull that one out. Move this over. There we go. Right, got it. You really don't seem to care. And 15 here. Thanks, I really want to improve. I just didn't know where I was going wrong. What was I gonna say? Oh, okay, gonna resume. I'm just placing this camera, but if you really wanted to be meticulous or it really mattered that you always had the same exact shot, you can copy the camera position, paste it. But for this, it really doesn't matter. Go to meet tag, yes. Stay in the call. Still recording. Okay, sorry, give me like a alert. So from here, we'd continue to build out our story. But for now, I'll just pencil in the remaining pages that we would create. We don't have to go through each one. But we would follow up with, you know, probably flying into the host character again, who would come back in with our coaching follow-up. That's not the best response here. You know, accurate but a little cold. Students engage more when they feel seen. If you were to pick that path. And then at the end here of our story, we had one path that they all came back to. We can just connect all those together. So now if you play through the story, you get to our multiple choice event, you're able to select a path. The multiple choice event is connected to each of those pages. And you'll see here too, even as we added more pages and it renumbered them, 10 still goes to 16, 20, 11. So it just will auto take care of itself. You don't have to update anything. But then we get to this end path, and this is really where, you know, we'd probably summarize, regardless of which path they picked, here's a good chance just to reiterate the principle, right? They got to practice, they got to learn, and now here's sort of the confirmation of what they just sort of made a memory of, and just adding a little more meat to it. Okay, but let's say I wanted to not bring everything back to a single point, you know, continue my story here. No, instead, what if I wanted, you know, a unique outcome if you answer this path, and then down here, good job. I want you to move forward in the story. So maybe that even, you know, continues on to its own branching timeline. Down here, you know, another whole scenario. And we keep going. But up here, maybe I want you to replay the scenario again. So in this case, I'm going to create a link to a page, and I can click this to send it to any page in any chapter in the story. So in this case, we're in chapter 1, and I want you to go back to page 10. There we go. So now it's set. So now if we were to go through the story, we'd come to our multiple choice moments. We'd go through the negative paths up here. We'd get sort of a, like, let's try that again. And then what would happen next is you would immediately get looped back to that multiple choice event. And this is, you could draw this with nodes, but this is just a cleaner way to forward people to any part anywhere. It keeps your story nice and clean so you don't get like a big noodle mess. But of course, you know, down here, our story would continue. And so we can really use this to branch as much as we want using those multiple choice events to create a true choose your own adventure story with as many unique outcomes as we want to create. Again, this can be a really fun way to create types of stories, types of learning, types of training that let people make choices, experiment, go through it several times, you know, see what works, see what doesn't work. You don't even really have to score it, but you're presenting people with a moment to really engage, put into practice what you're seeding with them, but let them take the reins on where the story goes. All right, so again, there you have it. Here's a look again at the story we just set out creating. Simple, choose your own adventure, 3 options, 3 outcomes. And from there, you really have a lot of exploration if you don't want to just make a single outcome, but you can really branch it as much as you want. You can send them to other chapters. You have a lot of freedom in the type of story you can tell. One note I've included here that I think is worth asking about is on the relevancy of a multiple choice. Is that really an effective way to learn and engage? Obviously, there's a lot of other solutions out there that are playing with similar mechanics, or even, you know, text entry type prompts that can be evaluated by AI. There's a lot of cool scenarios, and I'm sure we'll continue to grow and explore the types of engagement provided, but there's really a reason that we stuck with multiple choices. One, they're very simple, not necessarily easy, the challenge can be very hard. In fact, I think a great multiple choice type choose your own adventure will ramp in difficulty as you go. You know, a good easy first question could have 2 really obviously wrong answers and 1 preferred answer, or even no wrong answers. It's just conversational. And then by the time you're getting to the end, now the situation's maybe getting more intense or serious, and the answers matter. People are focused more, they're more comfortable answering and moving through it. I think it really just comes down to writing really good options for them to choose from, and just thinking about it as a growth and a game arc that you're putting them on. I think you know, another thing just to mention too is I really believe, especially with kind of the beauty of a choose your own adventure like this, it's more about getting them to interact many times, giving them lots of points of participation, rather than over focusing on what many people will quickly come across as a test. You're writing an exam that is being evaluated by an AI. You know, I think there's value in that in certain situations, but with 3D Storyteller, we really focus on engagement. I want people to engage with this. I want them to move through it, maybe even do it multiple times and really experience, explore, and think deeply on it. And with a multiple choice, you both get to give them opportunities to make choices, but you also get to see the right outcomes, the right language. They're there to discover, and you're really giving them kind of the ability to choose. So there you have it. A quick look at branching timelines using 3D Storyteller, specifically looking up close the multiple choice page event, how we think about the hero's journey. So we're not just lecturing at people, but we're actually setting them up to overcome a challenge on that journey of growth. And looking at that interaction template, the shape of a story. Every story has its own shape, but there's definitely very familiar patterns that begin to emerge. And as you understand them, you can work incredibly quickly to build these types of experiences at scale. Thanks again, and looking forward to chatting more in the future.